My name is Ashley, and this is Let's Talk Dispatch.
I do. You're gonna do it. Do it really well.
And I believe the world needs more dispatchers.
Around in the mud, blood, and beer.
Years that I'm not working 4th of July. 4th of July.
Say community policing, right? What about community dispatching?
So on this show, with the help of my guests, we will educate, empower, and support the heroes behind the headset. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another episode here on Let's Talk Dispatch. I'm super excited to bring on my guest today. They have been doing this for 15 years. In dispatch years, it's probably like dog years, they count like 7 to a year. I feel like that's probably how our timeline is when we're dispatchers, just because of the job that we do. So they've been doing this for 15 years, and they are currently the director at Pitt County 911 in Greenville, North Carolina. And even before we got onto the live recording, we were already diving into the differences between, the centers that I've worked at versus the centers they've worked at. So I'm going to go ahead and bring them on. This is Jimmy Hodges, director at Pitt County 911 in Greenville, North Carolina. Hi, Jimmy.
Good evening. It's dark here in North Carolina.
I know. It's getting there out here in Cali. It's funny. I need to look at what it looks like when folks sign up for the interviews, because I'm always like, when I send the emails, I always put like PST time, because I'm not sure how it looks for folks who are in another time zone. Like, I would imagine it's just marks their time and then changes it on my time, but it doesn't seem like that. So my apologies, folks. I'm going to look how I can put it on the front page. Like, this will be PST time for everyone's sanity, for sure.
And I do apologize. I'm coming to you from my actual shop. I got an 18-month-old in the house. I got an 11-year-old in the house, and he's got a friend over. So I figured, just for sound's sake, it would be better if I came out here by myself, and I shut the garage door. I got the doors locked, so I can't have a bunch of rugrats around and yelling and screaming.
Oh no, it works perfectly. So thank you so much. Not a problem at all. So just tell us a little bit of how you got into public safety and what was your dispatcher story,
So I graduated high school in 2005. Locally, right here in the same county I work in. I don't know how many other people go through this, but I walked across the stage. I grabbed my diploma. I shook the superintendent's hand. I walked off the end of the stage. And I'm like, crap, what do I do now? I had no idea what I wanted to be when I grow up. And that sudden epiphany hit me right then and there at graduation. The following year, I enrolled at the local community college in auto mechanics. All my life, I was like, you know what? I want to learn how to work on cars, so I'm going to go do that. I went to the community college. I got my associate's degree in automotive technology. I worked in a dealership for a total of 2 years, but along the way, a buddy of mine from high school that lived near me, in fact, he works with me at the 911 center now. He taught me into joining the volunteer fire department. And the area I'm in is still a fairly rural area, especially the area I grew up in. So I joined the volunteer fire department, and I didn't really think it was going to be my thing. Call goes out, you go to a call, okay. Well, then I went to a bad wreck and helped EMS, help cut a person out of a car, help EMS load the patient, stretcher, and ambulance, and so forth. Went to a couple fires, and all of a sudden I'm like, I like this. So, true story. I don't like to admit this to a lot of people, but I actually applied at 911 to hopefully get my foot in the door at the city paid fire department. I thought maybe, this little thing of public safety here would help boost my chances on getting at the Greenville Fire Department. And Greenville is one of the, on our side of the state, Greenville is probably one of the largest fire departments. And at the time, they were a very progressive fire department, very, very competitive process to get hired. Worked at 911, struggled hard for 6 months. Almost didn't make it. They almost told me, no, just pack your bags, you can go.
Mm-hmm.
After like one or two failed attempts to get on at the fire department, I was like, all right, well, I'm here. Let me see if this is my thing. And then I don't know, somewhere around the 2-3 year mark, I was like, you know what? I like this. This is my niche. This is what I need to do. And looking back on 15 years of service for 911, I honestly don't think I could be doing anything else. I enjoyed being a mechanic. I enjoyed fixing cars in high school, and I worked at the grocery store. I cut meat. I enjoyed it, but this is something that really drives me. I mean, I love what I do. I love the industry. I love the people I get to meet, conversations I get to have. So it's a pretty cool industry.
That's awesome. I always find it funny. It's always someone who like gets our foot in the door, right? Like someone, something like I remember when I was in high school, I was medically redshirted my senior year. So I've always been playing basketball my whole life. And then I got medically redshirted and I stopped playing for a little bit, went to work, graduated, wasn't sure what I was going to do. And then I remember my old teammate called me and she was just like, hey man, like I'm gonna go check out this junior college, their team, like if you go, I'll go type of thing. Right. Yeah. And it was like that, like every week, like you going to practice? Yeah, I'm going. Hey, you go, I'll go. I'll come get you. Like we were on the team, but every week we were talking like that. Oh, you going to the tournament this week? If you go, I'll go. But it's because my friend like pulled me back into it. So it's just always funny when I hear how folks are influenced by other people really checking something out, right? Like your friend was like, I'm going to go do this. Like, I like you, so come with me. This will be fun for us to do together type of thing,
Oh, yeah. And truth be told, that friend of mine, he works with me now at the 911 center. While we were in school, we really didn't hang out, didn't talk that much. I actually didn't like him, to be honest with you. I thought he was a rich, spoiled kid. We actually got connected after we graduated and started hanging out. And like I said, I lived literally just around the corner from the local volunteer fire department. Never noticed it my whole life. Driven past it 1,000 times, really didn't never notice it. Right. And it's like you said, before you record, people don't realize, or people don't care about people don't realize what we do until they need us. So he asked me to join the fire department, and as they say, it's been downhill from there.
And speaking of downhill, I did want to touch back on how you mentioned the struggle that you had in that first 6 months of training. A lot of people that reach out to me are getting into dispatching. They're trying to pass critical, they're trying to pass their polygraph backgrounds, all of this. And then like, yeah, that's the hardest part. And now you really got to buckle up, right? Once you get through those doors, because training can be so challenging and so extensive and so long. Do you recall like how you got through that,
So I don't mean to contradict you, but we didn't use critical when I got hired. Still don't use it. Still don't use it now. This is still a very rural area. Did not have a lot of structured training. When I first started, I went in for a 3-person panel interview. They asked me some generic questions. How do you think you would handle this? My interview consisted of a lot of geography questions. How well do you know the area? Which nowadays with our technology, we don't need people to actually have a good working knowledge of geography. I did the interview. I got a call 2 weeks later, coming into a drug screen. I did my drug screen because my background check already passed. And they called me after the drug screen. All right, come to work. So I gave a 2-week notice at the dealership I worked at as a mechanic. I sat with the assistant manager or the operations manager for a day, 2 days. And he kind of clicked through CAD and he kind of clicked through the map, and this is the phone and this is the radio. And there was an assumption that since I was a volunteer fireman, I'd be good on the radio, which I was more comfortable with. That is true. But after a day and a half, 2 days, all right, you're on shift. Here, these are your shift people right here. Meet such and such, such and such, such and such. You're good to go. And I struggled. I struggle with, and this is why I tell new people now that we've got a structured training somewhat. It's more structured than it used to be.
Mhm.
There's two things that I cannot train you on. One is active listening and
Mhm.
multitasking.
Mhm.
I cannot train. That's something you've got to figure out on your own. And multitasking was my Achilles heel when I first started. I mean, if I'm talking on the phone with somebody on my headset and someone is blaring on the radio, I'm going to miss something. Now
Mhm.
it's second nature, right? But
Mhm.
I really struggled with that in the beginning. But like
Mhm.
I said, at the 6 month mark, they were on the fence. Okay, we're going to let you go. You can stay. Thankfully, they let me stay because it worked
Mhm.
out. But they were on the fence with it.
Yeah. It is true, like the multitasking aspect of this job, because I remember that as well when I was, I don't even think I had training yet. We had a thing where we did Hot Week in the middle of our academy, where we just sat with someone for a week and they like gave us a taste of what we would be dealing with when we went to training, when we got full-fledged training. And our CAD system, we were heavy on the MDT. So like if radio had a question about a call I dropped, they would send a direct message essentially
Mhm.
to me on the CAD call. Um, and part of the multitasking is I'm on the call still listening, is you're supposed to scan the messages and see if they're asking something specific. And I wouldn't catch it quick enough for the trainer I was with. And they were just like, you're not going to make it if you can't look up while you're typing and talking and read and ask that question. And I remember having a dream that night that I like got kicked out of my academy and I was dispatching at Disneyland, which technically could be someone's dream, but in my dream it was a nightmare because I couldn't do the multitasking thing. So it's definitely challenging getting used to that
Now,
aspect.
if you don't mind me asking, what CAD system do you use?
We use Vesta and God, what is the CAD called? Because it just says CAD on my screen, but I don't think that's what it's called.
So Vesta's your phone, right?
Vesta's the phone,
Yeah.
and then CAD is CAD RMS.
Well, RM, that's a type of system. RMS is your records management, but I was trying.
Yeah, they all work together, and
Yeah,
I can't think of what our CAD's called.
we use now it's called Central Square, but it
Mm,
was Superion, and before that was SunGuard, and then when it first got created, it was OSSI, but it's changed so
mm,
many times over the years. And we just started AVL MDT in the last 2020, so in the last 3 years. In fact,
mm,
January of 20 is when we went to AVL MDT. We're not using the messaging feature. All of
mm,
our CAD notes drop. Like when we take a call, we're asking our EMD questions. Are they completely alert? Are they having difficulty
mm.
breathing? All that stuff drops in the notes. And
Okay.
our responders are still very push to talk, radio oriented if they got a question or something like that.
Mm.
Um, so we really haven't started using the messaging stuff at all. It's there, but we just don't use it.
Yeah, well, and then so I do police dispatching. We talked a little bit before, and then your center does fire,
Mhm.
EMS, and EMD. So I would imagine the systems. That's another thing that I would find challenging, or that I enjoy about the police side of things, is I get to freestyle like my questions. Right? It's
Mhm.
like I can go and what I just need to get five like essential things answered, but I can do it in whatever way, that I've grown accustomed to as my style. Whereas fire and medical, you guys are going off prompts and following wording and things, like you guys are more rigid in what you're supposed to say depending on what your caller's telling you, right?
Right. So yeah. So the protocols, it's a scripted based protocol,
Mhm.
and to your point, that is a pro of how centers do it that doesn't have a scripted dispatch, because you can have a more of a feel for it and wing it. Um, with scripted protocols, in the beginning when I train new people and they get credentialed or certified in the fire and the EFD, the EMD, they sound very robotic because they're reading off a prompt. And we work with them throughout that first couple weeks of them actually performing the protocols. Hey, you can throw a little personality in here. You don't have. People probably know you're reading from a script, but they don't need to know. Throw some empathy in there. Make them feel that they are important to you.
Mhm.
Um, The one thing I like about the scripted protocols, as compared to, I, I don't mean this to sound ugly, but freelancing, is
Mhm.
that it doesn't matter if it's me taking the call, if it's you taking the call, if it's Kevin or Travis taking the call. If it's a chest pains call, we all four handled it exactly the same way. If it's a
Mhm.
structure fire, it's handled exactly the same way. Cardiac arrest call, exactly the same way. So it provides that consistency. Um, and for our people that we hire that aren't certified, they can take the call. Okay, tell me exactly what happened. They can input the address, verify the address. But once they get to that EMD or EFD protocol, then someone else has to take over that's certified to perform it. So I think there's pros and cons to each. Like I said before, when we start recording, the protocols aren't perfect by no stretch of imagination, but they were written by some pretty smart people. The medical is probably the best. The fire is good, but it's still much more junior than the medical. The medical protocols came out, I believe, in the 70s. The
Mm.
fire protocols didn't come out until I think the early 2000s.
Mm.
So they still got some, finishing touches and some updates to do and things like that. But I can see the pros and cons to each side.
Yeah. And do you guys have any technology that you're using for like getting a visual of a patient on scene? Because I know like there's a lot of programs that are like, I can send you a link, then I can look and I can see if their lips are blue or purple or, like things like that. Do you use anything like that or see the value and the potential of that coming to your guys' center?
Um, Value, yes. I always see value in technology, but, and this is a big one,
Mhm.
I think people who opt to work in the comm center do so because they don't want to be the one seeing what the responders see or touching the patients and getting that involved with it. Um, we haven't looked at any technology that we can do video message or picture messaging, and I think I've opted out of that for the staff.
Mm.
I don't know how bad prank calls are and children calls are, where you are,
Yeah.
but I can see a lot of unnecessary prank videos and pictures coming to the comm center that, I feel like it's just going to add to the stress of the job.
Yeah, I could see that. I've gotten a lot of people's mixtapes through like text to 911.
Yeah.
Like, check me out on Spotify via text to 911. And it's like, do you have an emergency? We're not going to listen to your mixtape. I don't.
So, one question: so how are you funded? Is it through city taxes? Is there a state 911 thing that provides funding for PSAPs?
I believe it's a little bit of both. Like I'm a city PD. So we have like a city manager and things of that nature that have like the final say on certain fundings. For example, when I lateraled to my agency, I negotiated my pay a bit, and the city manager had to approve
Yeah.
the wage because it was a little higher than they normally bring laterals in at. So I know there's kind of a checks and balances there, but as well as we do have a state oversight that chimes in. I just don't know how much of our financials come from them as well.
So in North Carolina, we have what's called a 911 board, and everybody who has a cell phone, a landline phone, any kind of phone pays a 911 surcharge fee. Like on
Hmm.
your cell phone bill, it's like 51 cents, if that. But all that money is collected by the state, and depending, it's a complicated formula to some degree, but depending on how much money your PSAP has spent, the last 5 years, they have a formula that says, okay, this year Pitt County's gonna get this amount of dollars, but it's very strict on what you can spend that money on. If it
Hmm.
has anything to do with the incoming call, processing the call up to the dispatch, it's fundable. The chairs we send in or can be bought with that money. Computers, monitors, protocols, the consoles, the furniture itself, um, headsets, keyboards, mice, things of that nature. So it really takes a load off of the county to support our operation because, as you can imagine, running a 911 center is nothing but 100% cost.
Yeah.
We don't generate revenue.
Mhm. No, it's true. I know that a lot of the departments, like, they'll go for grants and things of that nature to get some extra funding in. I know my departments, both my departments have done that, kind of depending on what the need is, patrol side versus for police, patrol side versus communication side, and whatnot. That there are a lot of grants that they go for as well. So there's probably essentially a bit of a lack of funding, but I don't know specifically how our funding goes through our departments.
Yeah. And you asked a question earlier. I don't think I ever answered it, so I want to bounce back for a minute. You asked, what kind of advice I would give someone trying to get in the business, training, all that stuff.
Mhm.
Having a good working knowledge of your area is good, and knowing the business. And when I say that, in Pitt County, we got 20 fire departments plus the city of Greenville. We dispatch for approximately 11 or 13 ambulances now, I believe.
Mhm.
Know if I'm applying at Pitt County, you can do minimal research online and say, okay, this is the agencies we dispatch for. We only do fire and EMS. Just showing that you're taking the initiative to do a little bit of work to know what you're getting into. Believe it or not, we've had people to apply and we show them a copy of the schedule and they're like, I can't work nights. I can't work weekends. I'm not working holidays. I mean, we've had that happen before. So, and I don't know about what your agency or how California's doing as a whole, but staffing is getting bad.
Mhm.
When I
Mhm.
first took over as director, we would have one opening, just one, and I would get anywhere from 80 to 100 applications.
Mhm.
Now I got three openings right now. I'm about to promote a telecommunicator up to a telecommunicator 2 spot, which we just got approved. So I'm gonna have 4 TC openings, and the last 2 or 3 processes I've ran, I've gotten back about 10 applications.
And what do you think that is? Because one of my big things is like, yeah, the world needs more dispatchers. Like, I personally have been extremely lucky in my short career that I haven't been impacted greatly with forced overtimes and things of that nature. Both my departments, that while I've been at them, have been pretty fully staffed, and which is not the case around the states, right? That's just not the reality a lot of these centers are living in. And since you've been doing this for 15 years and you've kind of gone through it, now that you're seeing that less folks are applying, do you have an idea or a thought of what the
I,
why is?
I would love to think that I could provide insight on it, but I don't have the answers. More money would always help.
Yeah.
I think COVID really changed society's outlook. A lot of younger people now, they want remote jobs where they can do it from home, online. They don't have to talk to people, or they can just email and text. No
Mhm.
interpersonal communications. Um, they want to be able to, be very flexible with their schedules, and the remote jobs provide that. Um, when I was hired, and we still try to instill this in our staff, it's a paramilitary environment. We're not dress right dress and a tin hut and all that stuff, but there's still a chain of command you follow, and there's a policy you follow, and if you don't do that, then you're wrong in this way. Actual follow, and I think the younger people coming into the workforce now just ain't digging that. Plus, uh, work schedule's not the best. We work 12-hour shifts, 2 days a week, 2 weeks of days, 2 weeks of nights. We just switched to that. We were flipping every shift. So
Mhm.
we were doing, Monday, Tuesday days, and then you're off Wednesday, Thursday, and then you're doing Friday, Saturday, Sunday nights, and then you work Wednesday, Thursday days, and then you come back in Monday night. But now we just swapped to 2 weeks of days, 2 weeks of nights.
Mhm.
Hoping the staff is going to like it a little bit better. We're going to do it for 3 months and try it out.
Mhm.
Um, I don't know what the magic answer is.
Yeah.
I've been saying for years, one thing about 911 is we're not, and I don't mean this ugly, so please don't take it away, but we're not sexy.
Mhm.
Fire departments, they got the big shiny red trucks that whiz up and down the road. The ambulances the same way. Police officers got the snazzy uniform, the car, all the gun, and all the equipment. We don't get seen by the public, so very often we get forgotten. I can't tell you how many times people have called 911. I've answered the phone and they think that I'm sitting there on the phone with them and I'm taking their information down and I'm walking to the fire truck or the ambulance and I'm the one coming to their house. They do think that's what's happening.
It's true. They're like, "Oh, thank you, officer." I'm like, oh, is that my gun poking me in my hip right now? Like, no.
Or they think in North Carolina, they think I'm at some random call center in Colorado and I'm just punching the information to a computer and people are on the way. So
Yeah.
911 as a whole, and I don't mean this in Pitt County, I don't mean this in North Carolina, I mean as a whole, we have done a crappy job over the last 50 years with public education and awareness. We just haven't done it. The fire departments, and I say this all the time, the fire department is the only industry, or the fire industry is the only industry that I know of that tries to educate themselves out of business. You know, they are constantly pushing public education, fire safety, home safety, fall prevention, stuff like that. So if you stop and think about it for a second, they're trying to get themselves out of business. They're trying to reduce the need of themselves, and which we know it probably won't happen. And that education is beneficial to the public. But, you know, how often have you heard about 911 going out to a school event or a job fair or anything like that? We just haven't done it.
No, it's so true. And I think it's funny that you said, 911 isn't sexy, because I agree. Like, as an athlete in college, I'm all about like rep the squad. Like I've always had that like mind. I'm proud of the teams that I'm a part of. And, officers, firefighters, they all got the gear and the sweaters and the this and that. And that's big reason why I'm like making the shirts and like really dispatch specific gear and merchandise. So like because we're sexy too, I do totally agree that we have done a
exactly. We're never seen, and the public really just forgets about us. I mean, I was really hoping that with the popularity of the new 911 shows, I'm guilty. Have not watched one episode. I did not watch the Halle Berry movie because I knew it was going to be over Hollywoodized, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
But I was really hoping with those television shows, it would actually bring light to the industry and spark an interest with people. Most of the people I hire, and this is not a bad thing, I'm not saying that, they're looking for a job and a steady paycheck. Some of them may be looking a little bit deeper, looking for a steady paycheck, retirement, health insurance, stuff like that. Every so often I'll get someone to call me and, look, I'm really interested in this position. I want to be a telecommunicator. I've been ever since I was a kid, and I called 911 for my mom because she was choking. I've just been really interested in being a dispatcher. Every once in a while I'll get that, and that's great. And I want to pull those people in as hard as I can.
Yeah.
Most people come through. If I can get 5 years out of a telecommunicator, we're doing good. That's about the average retention period I'm seeing out of people is about 5 years. Because after about 5 years, they want to go on and do something else, work a Monday through Friday 8 to 5 schedule. I got 1, 2, 3, 4 people that work at our center that's got over 15 years, and that's not including myself and my ops manager. I think the average right now across the board is probably 2 years.
And I think that, you make a good point. It's, it's not all sunshine and rainbows in this line of work. And sometimes when you get an application put in, like you're just trying to get a job that's going to pay you a decent wage and, get you good benefits. And I think that's okay too. Like if that's what folks are applying to these positions for, like that's all right as well. Like not everybody has to come into this line of work, wanting to save lives or do this and do that. The acknowledgement of what we do in this line of work, it's going to come from doing it. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
So
the only thing I'll say about the people that are just looking a job, and this can be wrong, and I don't mean nothing offensive towards those people, but those are not the ones I would expect to see go long term. Those are going to be your 2 to 5 year employees. I was that employee. I was looking for get my foot in the door, go do the fire rescue stuff, and I fell in love with it. We've had an employee. She took her paramedic class while in the comm center. She did it all online. She took a little bit of time off to take care of practicals and stuff like that. And now she's a paramedic with the county. So she got a taste of the EMS world, and she's decided, hey, I want to go do that, and more power to you. And we were having this conversation at the office a few days ago. Back in the 80s, it was commonplace. It may be the same thing with officers where you're at. It was commonplace for EMS. Someone's been on the ambulance for 10, 15 years. Now their back is hurting, their knees are hurting, they can't move like they used to. So hey, I'm gonna go finish out my career in the comm center. We're not seeing that as much as we used to back in the 80s and 90s. So do you see that at your agency with police officers?
Yeah, I haven't seen a lot of it. It's actually funny. I was doing one of, I don't know if you're familiar with, she's a pretty known person out here, Kim Turner. She does, we have like our overbodying agency in California's Post. That's who does all of our standards. So I was doing
a lot of training stuff.
Yes.
I get emails from her all the time.
Yes. Yeah. So Kim Turner, she used to be a motor officer, and I think she got medically retired after a collision, and then went into dispatch, and then became a supervisor and things of that nature. Then ended up starting her training LLC, where she puts on courses. So I did an active shooter training today, and one of the instructors, it was that same kind of situation. They were in patrol, they got medically redshirted, and then they went into dispatch and finished their career in dispatch. So, and they were older. So I haven't seen officers come into the dispatch center other than to work like we call it like blue overtime, where if they're on light duty or if they are trained and we're understaffed, they put it out to the officers to come in and answer phone calls. But I hear it more often from my officers that they would not want to do our job than that they would want to come in and do our job,
And going back to our conversation about the difference in fire and EMS and police dispatching. So I'm assuming that when you go to work every shift, you're working with the same shift of officers.
For the most part, yeah.
Yeah. So you get a very good rapport with those men and women because every time you work, they're working unless someone's on vacation. That's one thing that the camaraderie that I feel like we don't have in the fire and EMS business, because most of our fire departments are volunteer, so you don't know who's going to the calls, who's talking on the radio or whatever. The fire and rescue that's in the city, they work 24/48. So within 2 or 3 weeks, you pretty much ran through every shift. The county EMS folks, they work 24/72s. So, we don't really get that rapport and that camaraderie with the field responders like you do in the law enforcement world.
Yeah, and I have definitely come from a larger agency to a smaller agency as of late. And at my larger agency, I knew my officers by their call sign and whether they pissed me off half the time, really. Like their work ethic as an officer, that's kind of how I identified. Like I knew Motor 75 wouldn't give me attitude, or they just go to the call, or I knew them that way. At this current agency that I'm at, because we are much smaller, like I know them. I know their families. I know, if they have kids. I know their hobbies. I talk to them all the time. And I had a cover call, like a Code 3 fighting with one cover call with one of my officers recently. And it just, having that camaraderie, it just felt like those minutes just feel much longer.
And you could probably pick up on a tone drop in their voice and tell that this is bad. I need to get help on the way.
Yeah. I mean, it was a really weird experience for me, because I've had, I was at a larger agency, had lots of cover calls, things of that nature, because of the types of calls that we received at that department. And at this smaller department, we don't get them as often because it's a smaller area, and it's a little more highfalutin area, a little more wealthy. So we don't get a lot of high priority calls the way I would out in Sacramento. But when I had that cover call, I was just like, man, like I know it's XYZ person, and and I'm just waiting for them to come up because I actually know them. It just felt a lot different than previous in the past.
Yeah, we don't get that camaraderie. We have some agencies and some people that are very respectful of us and really appreciate what we do, and we got some people, and it's just a responder thing. We don't like 911. They just sit there and they just tighten their buttons and they screw things up. If I could tout one person publicly, it's our community paramedic, and I won't call her by name because she probably get embarrassed. But a few years ago, we started a community paramedicine program, and basically, if you're not familiar with it, patients get referred to the program, and they're quality customers, so they're repeat users of the 911 system. And this is a partnership between the county EMS and the local medical center. So we're trying to help these people not require our services as often. And she goes out and she does home safety checks. She does she's a paramedic, but she's also a nurse. So she goes and she does the work of like 10 people. She's a DSS worker, she's a paramedic, she's a nurse, she's a safety officer for these people, she's a friend, she's a shoulder to cry on. And she has really reduced the need of people calling 911. But when she got brought on, we started this new thing with her. When she goes out on a call, she calls us on the radio. We put a call in CAD for her, and it's got a 30-minute watchdog. So in 30 minutes, if she ain't checked out with us, we're checking on her because she realized very quickly that she's going into some rough areas and dealing with some semi-rough people. And when you're inside of a patient's home and you're one-on-one, you don't have a partner. She was like, 911's the only people I can depend on in the whole world. I got my radio with me. So she is very, very complimentary of the staff at 911, and she's very appreciative of us. So, and every chance she gets to tell the folks in there, she steps in there and, she said, hey, I really appreciate it. And I really appreciate everything y'all do. So little stuff like that can really help boost morale for, your telecommunicators.
Yeah, totally. And I do find it interesting, especially, as of late with the state of, specifically policing and first responders and things of that nature, is the new programs that are being born from these new conversations about how, police are responding, when we should respond, or who is the proper response to certain types of calls. So I do find it interesting that you guys have you on the fire side as well have kind of created a response with this community person to go out to those who are the frequent flyers and things of that nature to kind of help segue that need. So I just find it really interesting, these programs that are being born to kind of help with those things, because we have frequent callers who call 911 all the time. And like for police, it's like, well, calling 911 for a non-emergency, or is it 911 abuse? And it's like, well, we don't want to go arrest folks for 911 abuse. Like that's not the community relationship that we're trying to create, right? So we're trying to create education and not consequence. But in our line of work, we don't have a lot of those resources to provide that education. We're short-staffed in our centers. We're short-staffed patrol, and I imagine you guys are short-staffed fire, EMS, things as well. I'm sure we're all feeling that. So,
yeah, and 988, is a new 3-digit number for real crisis. In our area, there's only one real crisis center in the whole state, and luckily for me, it's right here in Greenville.
Oh, okay.
And we've actually had conversation with the lady that runs the real crisis center, and I need to get back up with her, but she did state to us that she was willing to come out and train with the telecommunicators on how to identify, okay, this person you need to send EMS to. They may harm themselves, they may harm someone else, but this person just needs someone to talk to. They need someone just to listen to them and let them talk out their aggression, their feelings, and that's where a real crisis comes in. So I think these secondary, call centers or these secondary functions that we're now seeing in public safety, they're very small right now, and they're taking off. But I think in 10, 20 years to come, they're going to be playing a much larger role in public safety than what you're currently seeing them doing.
And I know I've seen like a couple case studies for policing specifically. I want to say it was Detroit that they created a mental health response team. So the calls 911, the dispatcher triages it, no weapons, no immediate harm. And then that call goes into a mental health queue rather than a patrol queue.
Right.
So then the dispatcher dispatches to the mental health team in the same manner they're dispatching to patrol officers. And from those initial reports, they found really early success that they only had to call for help for police a handful of times. And if for some reason the dispatcher heard some type of weapon or immediate harm and they sent police out and then the officers determined like, no, it's fine, they would leave and kick it back over to the mental health team's dispatch, and then they would respond out whenever they were available. So I know I have seen like in these Facebook groups and things like that, dispatchers, we hate change.
Yeah.
Historically, we hate change. Being a little hesitant to maybe having to take on the brunt of dispatching these new resources. But for me personally, I think more resources, the better. Less times I have to send an officer to a non-criminal situation and I can send this other resource.
Yeah.
Like, I think that's amazing. But I do understand it becomes with a lot of nuances as we're like learning whose responsibility it is.
Right. So, and then that's going to come with learning curves and growing pains. But, and once again, not law enforcement, never been a cop, never want to be lit. So I'm talking a little bit out of school here, but my current boss is the emergency management director, and he came to our agency via the sheriff's office where he was the chief deputy. He was the second guy in command. And things like this, I think, are a good thing when you talk about mental health people instead of a police officer, because I think over the last 20 years, we have put way too much on police officers. Police officers and deputies in our area carry Narcan. They're expected to respond to an overdose and administer Narcan. They carry AEDs. We send them to cardiac arrest calls, and they're expected to place an AED and shock and start CPR if they're the first one there. Over the last 20, 30 years, we've put in so many roles and responsibilities on our officers. Now you're saying that we need to be trained on how to, handle this mental health issue. And then I'm not going to get into it, but, that's going to cause mental health problems with the officers on the back end. So I think doing stuff like this and taking a load off the officers will make them more efficient at their job as far as deterring crime and investigating ongoing crimes. Like I said, we have put way too much on officers in the last 20, 30 years.
Yeah. And I think when we talked about earlier is just this lack of education around 911 and the services that are provided. If I had $1 for every time I told someone like, this is not a police matter,
right?
I'd be able to retire and not have to work anymore.
Yeah, we don't tell people that. We don't tell people this is not a police matter because we can just put them off to the police department. But I mean, someone calls because their water pipe busted and they want the fire department to go there and fix it. Well, sir, ma'am, the fire department's going to bring you more water. You need to contact a contractor. You need to contact a plumber. The fire department can't fix your plumbing. So I know what you're talking about, those type of calls where we really just can't send anybody.
Yeah. It's just like, this isn't our thing. And it's the idea that has been pushed that if I dial these 3 numbers, help is going to come. But in reality, it's like we are only supposed to be dealing with certain kind of help.
Yeah.
Crimes in progress.
We've become the catch-all for everyone's problems.
Yeah. My favorite, and I think I said this recently, is just like the neighbor disputes. Like Billy cut my tree and it's on my side of the fence line. And like, just like,
Yeah. Yeah.
like just people having a very hard time communicating with other people. And it's like, or even, the parents calling because their kids are acting out. Like that.
That has gotten a whole lot worse in like the last 5 years. I do not know
Man.
why, but yeah, my 8-year-old won't get up and get dressed for school. Send the officer over here to scare him.
Yeah.
Once again, we can pump that off to the police department, but that has gotten really worse in the last like 5 years.
Yeah. And then I mean, if you unpack it even deeper, it's like, we don't want people to be afraid of the police department.
Right.
we don't want little Timmy to be like, when I was 8, an officer came and threatened me to go to school.
Right.
Like that's not what we're looking for. So it's really interesting how often I have to at this agency, we have a little more leeway to have those conversations because of our call volume. In Sacramento, it was like, we're not coming.
Yeah.
But
you hang up next call.
But here we have a little more space to be a little more customer service friendly. But yeah, the reality is we do get those calls quite often. It's like, well, I think there was a viral, this is not what to do as a dispatcher, but I could see the frustration is that the dispatchers told the caller, I don't know if you've heard this one, that what do you want us to do? Come shoot the kid? And
yes,
you've not heard that one?
Yeah.
And it's like, and then the caller was like, what? Like, how dare you? Like this, and that. And it's just like, that one should have been on the mute key. That should have been what you told your friend and not the caller. But the reality is, what do you want the police department to do? Like, how do you want us to service you in this situation? Because it's not a reality. We don't have the staffing to parent people's children, And
I don't mean to be, ugly about it or offensive, but it's kind of like first world problems. We've come into a society that when we get the least bit inconvenienced, we have got to. It's someone else's fault, and something's got to be done right now about it. And unfortunately, in our business, 911 has become that catch-all. Once again, going back to public education, public relations, educating the public on what we do. Posting on Facebook, social media has been great. It's dangerous, but it's great. Websites, there's so much a stronger internet presence now. Almost everyone's using the internet. You can post on your county website or your city website when to call 911, when not to call 911. We've done a couple of PSA videos and post on YouTube. In fact, our Pitt County's Anatomy of a 911 call video actually won a national award for the Public Information Office.
Very cool.
All that stuff is great, but as an industry as a whole, we really need to step up and educate the public, because until we do, we're going to continue to be that catch-all for everyone's problems. Busted water pipes, a tree fell down on my driveway, I can't go to work, just stuff like that. It's going to continue. We get phone calls, hey, what time is the parade today? Hey, how much snow is supposed to fall tomorrow? Is school going to be out? It's going to get worse, and unfortunately, that's going to drive stress for your staff, and it's going to deter people from coming into the service or staying with us, because not only are they dealing with this high acuity stuff, gunshot wounds, robberies, burglaries, breaking and entering, cardiac arrest, but they're also dealing with this crap way down here that is completely unnecessary.
Yeah, these petty problems that just you could Google this. Why are we talking right now? You could Google this. Or because California, we just had, our big storms, California, it sprinkles and we go crazy. So we don't know what weather is like out here in Cali, that's for sure. So the storms happened, and at my center, we got overloaded with, storm drains being clogged, and people's homes were starting to get flooded because of the drains. And I really recognize that I have a very short fuse right now for problems that you can take care of yourself. You can attempt to take care of yourself. Now, if you call me and say, I was out there for an hour digging this stuff out of this drain and it's still clogged, all right, I can work with that. But we were getting a lot of calls it's flooding at the city drain. someone needs to come fix it. And it's like, you're on the list. We will get there as soon as we can. There's only so many, it's that idea of like, if no one's coming to save you, what are you going to do?
Right.
When you think about like big fires or big snowstorms or things like that, like, what are you going to do if no one can come to save you?
So, and one thing I like about being attached to emergency management, we do a lot of education on hurricane preparedness, storms, and things of that nature. So we've really stepped up in the last 5-6 years and really trying to get education out there to the public. Back in 2016, I was a supervisor, and we had Hurricane Matthew come up the eastern seaboard. And we did not make any plans for overstaffing. The National Weather Service and the Weather Channel and all the weather people predicted that it was going to turn eastwardly and skirt up the coast, and we were going to get a little bit of rain, not much wind. And once again, weather people are it's the only profession that I know of that you can be wrong and it's okay. But
like, my bad.
Yeah.
What I meant to say was.
So it ended up not turning northerly. Excuse me, I said easterly a while ago. It did not turn north. It came straight into North Carolina, and we're about an hour drive, 65 miles from the coast.
Mm.
And I was supposed to go to work that Saturday. I went into work, and I'm driving down the street to my comm center, and I'm looking at the storm drains, and the water is white capping going into the storm drains. I'm like, this storm is not turning.
Mm.
And that night at shift change, all crap broke loose. I mean, trees on people's houses, people's cars flooded out in the street. But going back to your point, we have a thing called the Rule of Normalcy, and Hurricane Matthew actually created it. So, today, right now, if someone calls 911 in Pitt County and says, hey, my car, I'm in flooded waters, my car stalled out. Okay, we'll send the fire engine to go there, assist you, get out of the car, make sure you're safe, yada, yada. We were taking so many of those calls during Hurricane Matthew, and so many trees down on houses that call type went from being an emergency to being normal.
Mm.
So, like, someone called in front of the gas station, hey, my car's flooded out. There's like 3 foot of water on the road. What do I do? Well, sir, can you make it to dry land safely? Yeah, well, you're going to do that and wait it out because we ain't got no one to send you to you.
Mm-hmm.
We got other stuff going on. And this one particular incident, excuse me, this guy called, his car's flooded out in front of a gas station. Sir, can you make it to dry land safely? Yeah, I can make it over to the gas station. Out here we have sheets.
Mm.
And, all right. Well, in the next 20 minutes, he called like 7 times. Well, I need someone to come take me home. Well, sir, we ain't got time to send you an officer to take you home. You have to call Uber, phone a friend, do something else.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, so people, it goes back to education. They just don't. They got a problem, and they know 911 would more than likely fix it.
Yeah. And it's funny because, when we talk about like first world problems, I have a teammate. She's from South Africa. She came out, played on my JUCO with me for 2 years, and she still lives in South Africa. And she had just recently visited me in December. She comes back every couple of years, and we were talking about 911. It was actually just when like the Ukraine stuff started happening. So, hearing her thoughts on that being, on the other side of the world. And I was asking her about 911 for them and like EMS and things like that. Like, do they have a number that they call and are they expecting a quick response? And she said they do have a 911 essentially. But the response is kind of spotty. Mm-hmm. And she was like, if I'm on the street and like my friend gets hit by a car, it is quicker for me to call an Uber, put my friend in the Uber, than wait for an ambulance because the ambulance is going to take hours. And I was just like, that blew my mind. Like, I couldn't imagine even like the folks that I transfer to fire or retransfer, they're like, it's been 5 minutes, you guys aren't here yet. And it's just like, we can't teleport, number one. Number two, just this instant gratification that we become used to in society in general, and it bleeds into our first responder world. Mm-hmm. because it's
No,
just it's
I don't
wild.
think I don't think people realize it, and this may be something worth researching, but I
Mhm.
guarantee that the United States as a country probably spends more per capita on public safety
Mhm.
than any other country. Maybe not every other country. I ain't gonna speak for Canada or the UK or anything like that, but people don't realize how much money goes into public safety.
Mhm.
That's one reason I'm so passionate about it, because all the stuff that you pay taxes for that we
Mhm.
probably shouldn't be paying taxes for, or our tax dollars getting spent unwisely. I'm passionate about public safety because that's one thing that your tax dollars should provide: the
Mhm.
best equipment, the best technology, um, the best people, the best training, because that's life death type stuff.
Mhm. Mhm.
Um, but yeah, some areas, I mean, there's still areas in the country from what I've read that still don't have 911. And like you said, if you live in a rural area that you're still depending on, a sheriff and a deputy or a
Yeah.
volunteer EMS service, you might call 911 and not get nobody for an hour.
Mhm.
That's when you got to go back to your basic instinct, figure it out. If
Mhm.
it's a medical emergency, throw grandma in the car, haul Chelsea to the hospital.
Mhm.
But I guarantee that will be an interesting subject of research on how much per capita we spend on public safety in America, because it's astronomical.
Yeah. And I mean, I would imagine like I went to school in Iowa for a couple years, and I remember my first winter in Iowa. I had a very rude awakening of what winter really is for
Yeah.
like the rest of the states outside of the coastline here. But I would imagine like in North Carolina, like you guys get weather. You know what I mean? Like,
Oh man, we've had all four seasons in the last week. We've
oh my
had freezing cold, frost, uh, warm days with rain. We had a tornado warning night before last in the
God.
middle of January, which is odd for North Carolina. But I mean, northeastern North Carolina weather is about as bipolar as you can get.
Oh my gosh.
And I don't mean polar like cold. I mean it's crazy.
Yeah, no, that tornado, that tornado weather, that weather is scary. I remember in Iowa, the first time I experienced it, they had like the 7-Eleven there is called Come and Go.
Mhm.
Weird name. Come with a K. Um, so I was at Come and Go, and I was grabbing like gas and snack, and then I remember going into the store, and it was blue skies, and I remember coming out, and it was silent. Like there was like no birds, no rustling, no nothing. And then you saw the sky start to turn black.
Yeah,
And
it's
I was
eerie
like,
feeling.
yeah, I was like, I should go home. I don't know what's happening out here, but I need to go find someone who's from the Midwest so they can direct me. And my roommate, she's from Iowa. And she was like, oh, yeah, there's a tornado warning. The alarms will start going off soon. I was like, okay, so should we go in the basement? And she was like, no, we're
So,
fine right now. And I was
so
like,
here,
well, we can go in the basement.
here in Eastern North Carolina, if a hurricane is projected to hit the coast, um, people around here, we have hurricane parties. But you let us get a projection of 2 inches of snow, and people will lose their minds. All the bread, milk, and eggs get gone from the grocery store.
Oh
People
my
go to Lowe's and Home Depot and buy up every generator they can grab. It's crazy. I mean, and we have that weather. Knock on wood, we've been lucky with hurricanes last couple of years.
Mhm.
We've had a little bit of snow here and there, but mainly we have hot, humid summers, mild to cold winters. But here, where we're located, we get all of it. Now we don't get hurricanes. I'm in the coastal plain, so we're very flat. We have the mountains in the west. My wife is from the Piedmont region of the state, which gets hilly, but it's not mountains.
Mm.
We don't deal with mudslides. We do have the occasional wild brush fires that eat up acres of land. Nothing like in California.
Mm.
So we have a little bit of everything here. I wouldn't know what to do with myself if the ground started shaking.
That's my teammates when I went to Iowa. They were like, aren't you afraid of earthquakes? And I was like, no. And they were like, well, we know when the tornadoes are coming. You guys don't know when the earthquakes are coming. I was like, yeah, but like tornadoes are seasonal. You get them like
Right.
you get rain. We might get an earthquake so often.
Yeah.
Like, that's scary. Seasonal things that sweep your house up, wild.
Yeah. We had an earthquake. This has been years ago because I was working in the grocery store, so I was like 18, 19 years old.
Oh my
And the
gosh.
earthquake, it actually happened off the coast of Virginia, but here in Greenville, we still felt a little bit of the tremble,
Mm.
and people were losing their minds. The news, I mean, you would have thought it was the biggest news day in
Oh
North
my
Carolina. Everybody was reporting on it. Everybody was calling, the national the seismic scientists and doing interviews. I mean, it was crazy.
God.
But it's just we're not used to it here. Just like we're
Yeah.
not used if it snowed 3 feet tomorrow, we'd be in trouble because we're just not ready for that type of stuff.
That's us with the rains, man. We were like, I don't know what to do.
In fact, I got a cousin that or my cousin's daughter. She actually asked me a couple years ago about getting a 911 job in my neighboring county, and they
Mhm.
work under the sheriff. And I was like, look, you need to do this, research this, talk about multitasking. I was giving her pointers on what they would probably ask, and she got the job. Well, she worked there, I think, a year or two, and life changed. She met a guy, moved to Idaho.
Mm.
All the places in the world had to be Idaho. Nothing, no disrespect to the people of Idaho, but as a young female, I figured, oh, I want to move to California. I want to move to New
Yeah.
York. I want to move big. No, they moved to Idaho,
Idaho.
and for her, it was a culture shock because out there, they get a rainstorm and everybody's freaking out.
Hmm.
So I mean, it's kind of weird. Just like our accents and our culture can change so much from community to community. It's just weird how in public safety the weather can be so different and change people's opinions.
Seriously, no, it's wild. It is crazy to me. I mean, my first winter was negative 32 degrees in Iowa, and I was like,
Cold. No,
this was not in the brochure, coach. And he was like, oh, this is the worst winter we've had in years. I'm a liar. This is probably what it was like last year. Lied to me.
now, asking more about your stuff. Do y'all have like a statewide next gen 911 system or?
Yeah, we have a state that's operating, trying to like get everyone up to date on the next gen 911 stuff. They do our 988. Like, I have an old boss from SAC who's working for the state now, and they were heavy on the 988 resource team, bringing text to 911 into all of our centers. Like they run like all of that, trying to create the standard for us here in
Okay.
California.
Yeah, we back in 19 we got on the statewide we call it the EZNet.
Mm.
So it basically connects all the PSAPs with the IP phone system. And I actually had a conference call yesterday with the state, and we're getting our next gen turned on in May. So a lot of GIS mapping stuff. That's very heavy with the next gen stuff. But that technology, I think, is going to take 911 to the next level.
Oh yeah. I mean, I think it's definitely, as far as like locations and stuff, even like, so I've been doing this for like 5 years now. So even throughout my 5 years, the technology, like how much the technology has changed these last 5 years is wild. I mean, text 911, rapid SOS, rapid deploy, those type of companies coming to the forefront, offering more options and things to be able to communicate with folks in emergencies. Just the mapping within our CAD systems being so much better. It's been wild, just even for 5 years, to see how much growth has happened in the industry, and really how much growth we have to go. I mean, it's crazy.
So when I first started, we had a CAD that was built in house by our IT folks, and it was a great CAD, but it was based off of landline phone numbers and a phone number database. And back in 2007, landline calls were about 50-50 landline calls, cell phone calls. We had a black map. The streets were little white lines, and you had to copy the address from CAD, hit the map button, it would paste it into the map and run the address. And for the most part, it worked great. In 2016, right after the hurricane, that's when we went to Superion or Central Square CAD. And this thing, to us, it's like a Cadillac. The map is integrated with the call taking screen. You got your active units. We can keep track of individual units instead of like fire departments and EMS departments. You run an address, and depending on what call you take, it automatically recommends 4 engines, EMS, battalion chief, da 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 da. Google Maps is integrated into our mapping system, so you actually see Google Maps underneath your fire response layers. The next big thing I'm waiting on is the Z coordinate. We're flat here in Eastern North Carolina, but you get an XY coordinate for your lat and long. But once we start getting that elevation Z coordinate, and if someone's calling from an apartment complex and we can tell they're on the 3rd floor, they're on the 4th floor, and then it's going to end up getting to the point where we know that they're on the 3rd floor, apartment 34.
Yeah.
That stuff is really going to change, working in 911 instead of having to do so much guesswork.
God, so much guesswork. And especially if it's like a call drop or a call, and you have to it's cool, all this technology we have to be able to find, subscribers and that information and be able to kind of well, it's probably here because of XYZ equals this, right? Putting all those things together. But it is time consuming, right? If you have all that limited information and someone is really in a life or death situation, every moment you're increasing the chances of a negative outcome. So this technology being able to narrow things down, like you said, just down to an apartment where we don't have to do all this guessing or puzzle detective work, it's only going to increase positive outcomes in these emergency situations.
Now this is a plug for Rapid SOS. So if Rapid happens to get a hold of your podcast, they have my permission to use this story. We went with Rapid SOS because a lot of the PSAP directors in the state were talking about it at NENA APCO meetings and PSAP manager meetings. So I looked into it. It's free to PSAP, so why not try it out? So me and the operations manager, we looked into it. We got a set up an account. We got our TC set up with usernames and logins, and people were logging in and checking it out. But it's another thing we got to log into. It's another username. It's another password. So one day, myself, my current operations manager, and my former operations manager, we were all 3 covering shift because we had a whole shift call out. We're pretty sure it was COVID. It was before COVID actually became a thing.
Yeah.
We had a gentleman that called 911. I answered the phone, and he said, "Look, I'm about to end it all. I want y'all to come find me before my family does." And all right, man, what's your name? I was trying to stall, get a better location on him. I was firing up Rapid SOS, and I got a good hit on his phase 2 for his cell phone, but I wanted to see what Rapid showed. And in Greenville, we have a little walking path that goes around the downtown area along the river and stuff like that. And I was getting a good hit there, and I was stalling. I was like, "Hey man, give me your name. Where you at? I can't get people to you until you tell where you're at. So if you want me to help you, just tell me." But he hung up, disconnected. And Rapid had a good hit, but it wasn't great. So I'm calling the police department. I'm like, "Hey, y'all need to get an officer in this area. I got a guy threatening suicide, blah, blah, blah." He called right back. Our partner answered the phone. He had Rapid sign up ready to go. And it pinned him down to exactly where he was at.
Awesome.
Within, I want to say it was like 5 minutes of his initial call, officers were walking up to him, and he was standing on a chair and putting a rope around his neck.
Oh, wow.
And they got him out. I besides him, getting pulled out by the police that day, I don't have much follow up on it, but Rapid was the changing factor on that person and on that call. So that was a great product. And if any other PSAP director or manager happen to hear this and you don't have it, get signed up. It is great technology, and it's free.
Yeah. No, it really does work really well. I've used it. I'm using it at my current agency and at my previous agency, and it really does take the guesswork out of if I'm not getting the greatest hit on the phase 2 or phase 1 on the 911 call, rapid, I throw it in rapid, and actually it automatically in our system automatically routes it once we get a 911 call in at your console, and it's kind of already automatically set up, so it'll pop up as long as you have it open. It'll kind of start doing that job already. And it has made huge differences in being able to locate folks, especially when we have where I'm at, we have a lot of open space. And like rangers go out there and stuff like that. And it's like, okay, where'd you park your car? But then they hiked and, things like that. It becomes a little more challenging. So I think that technology is super beneficial in those type of situations as well.
Yeah. And we just did an in-service, I think maybe a month or two ago, on how to input lat and long into CAD to find somebody, how to make sure we know how to call the cell phone carriers and get them to ping a phone in case we don't have no idea where this person is. So, and we actually had a call last week. I was working console and we had to call a cell phone carrier, get them to ping a phone. The only thing that scares me about Rapid, and I don't know if you've seen this or not, but on your iPhone, you have the health app. I don't know what it's called on Android, but you can go in there and I can put, I'm Jimmy, 6 foot tall, 250 pounds. I have, bipolar schizophrenia. I'm on medicines A, B, C, D, da, da, da. Well, if that's on the app of your phone, all that information and that data gets spilled over to Rapid. And it's good information, don't get me wrong, but it's just scary on how much you put in your phone and it's available to others. So, like I said, it's a great tool, but to me, it's just a little bit scary.
Yeah. What do they say? Our FBI agents are listening when we're talking to our phones and stuff.
Yeah.
Like, I be getting ads for things that I didn't type into my phone. I got questions. So.
Oh, when we get done, I guarantee I'm gonna fire up Facebook. I'm gonna have Rapid SOS on my phone, no doubt. I have no doubt.
I mean, I heard you were talking about us.
Yeah. Or I'm gonna have a TripAdvisor notification. Do you want to take a trip to Sacramento?
Oh man, that's great. Well, what advice would you give someone who is considering a career in dispatch?
Make sure you can work the schedule. Make sure you can deal with stress. But if you're not interested in being a field responder, fire, EMS, police, you will not find a more rewarding job. Whenever my folks take a call that, had a very good outcome, even if it's one call out of 1,000, hey, this cardiac arrest over here, we work close to the medical director's office. He lets us know when we get Ross back on a cardiac arrest patient. Hey, you got Ross back on this call. I had to go out as part of my EM role last week, and I had to investigate a fatal fire. And when I got on scene, the volunteer fire department was nothing but complimentary about the job 911 did. Hey, they got us out the door quick. They gave us great information. They just did a bang up job. Hey, make sure they know. So that shift was actually working. Today's Friday. They worked Monday and Tuesday. So Tuesday when I came in the office, I was like, hey guys, I just want to let y'all know the fire department said y'all did a great job on that call. I just want to pass it on. So for anybody interested in this field, you may not know nothing about it. You may not, understand the ins and outs of 911, but it's a rewarding job. And just like most things in life, you get out of it what you put into it.
Definitely.
And I don't know what kind of shift y'all work, but I mean, it sounds like it sucks doing nights, days, holidays, weekends, but I mean, I miss my time off during the week. I'm an admin Monday through Friday person now. I miss having a random Wednesday off at the house by myself with just me and my Xbox or me in the shop. I can come out and do stuff. But, we need trained professionals in 911, and it isn't just here in Pitt County. It goes from North Carolina all the way to California, from Texas up to North Dakota. I mean, we need them everywhere. And I don't want to sound doom and gloom, but, if people stop and think for a moment, what happens if I call 911 and there's no one there to answer the phone? What's going to happen? So we really need to step up and get out and start recruiting people. We had the conversation before. I don't know what the answer is. I've considered, going to job fairs for high schools, community college, stuff like that. But we need great people that are eager to help somebody.
Mm-hmm.
And we make a difference. Don't think for 1 second just because we don't respond to that burglary, we don't respond and put water on that fire, that we're not helping people. People know that people are appreciative of the job we do, even though we don't get the thank you letters and the phone calls saying thank you. We make a huge difference in people's lives.
We do. And I mean, I've said it before, and I'll probably say it 1,000 times, is that we are the first point of contact for an emergency, whether it's someone calling 911 or an officer or a firefighter or EMS raising someone on the radio saying we've on viewed some type of emergency. You have to go through dispatch to get the balls rolling and folks moving in the direction to provide that assistance. So it is a needed job. It is a job that we need to get more folks in the door to do. And like you said, it's a rewarding job, completely rewarding.
I think I got a thank you letter one time in my career, and it was a lady that called, and her mother was in the restroom, and she was bleeding from her dialysis port.
Mm.
Went through the EMD protocol, told her how to control the bleeding, but it was difficult because it's a dialysis port, so it just kept bleeding. And this woman, she was so irate. She really won't listen to anything I said, so I just stayed on the phone with her, and she started praying. And I said, "Ma'am, just keep the cloth on your mother's arm." I just stayed on the phone with her, and I talked to her, just reassure her. All in all, I didn't do anything for that lady besides give her someone to talk to. And her mom got transported to the hospital, and from this was several years ago. She got discharged. They fixed the port. They stopped the bleeding. But she sent a nice little thank you card back to the center. And it was like, "Look, you were amazing. You did a great job." And I didn't do anything, but we were just that calming voice in that moment of crisis for her. And unfortunately, she lived way out, in the county. So it took EMS 15 minutes to get there. But, and I'm not saying it because it was me, but, that telecommunicator on the phone, that's that one person in the world that you're depending on. And, there's some bad raps with telecommunicators doing stupid stuff like hanging up on callers or, cussing calls and stuff like that. But out of the millions of 911 calls placed in the United States a year, we get it right 99.9% of the time. And we do an excellent job at it.
Mm-hmm. So true. Well, Jimmy, thank you so much for coming on today. You guys are going to see it, but in the middle of our interview, my power went out. And so we had this little interval. So thank you for being willing to stay in there for me while I got everything up and running back on my end. And I've really enjoyed and learned so much from you today.
Oh, yeah, no problem. If you ever want to have me back in, just drop me an email.
Yeah, for sure. All right, Jimmy, thank you. I'll be right back with you, okay?
Okay.
All right, everybody, that was another episode here on Let's Talk Dispatch. Again, Jimmy, thank you so much for your thoughts, your experience, and honestly, your insight. You've made me think about researching a few things in my industry and how we do things in California and where our funding comes from and things like that, things that I just haven't thought about and I feel like I should know the answer to. So I'm definitely going to dive into that research because of our conversation today. As always, everybody, like, subscribe, tell a friend, follow us at the Raspy Dispatcher on all the social medias. And until next time, stay raspy, everybody. Thanks for joining us here on Let's Talk Dispatch. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button and leave a 5-star review. Consider joining our Patreon for exclusive content, early access to episodes, and discounts on merch at theraspydispatcher.com. Follow us on Instagram and Facebook and subscribe to our YouTube channel. All of these things help support the creation of more content because the world needs more dispatchers. Thank you all again for the love and continued support. And until next time, stay raspy.